All right, I'm going to go over the problems that I planned to go over yesterday. Again, I'm not sure what happened there, but this is just an example of scalar multiplication, and most likely you don't have any issues with that. So scalar multiplication is just basically distributive property. If you have a number times a matrix, then you're going to multiply each number inside the matrix by that number. So in this case, I have 6 times. I'm multiplying 6 times -3, 6 times 2, 6 times 1, 6 times 7, 6 times 8, and 6 times -5. To simplify to give me the matrix -18, 12, 6, and 42, 48, -30. All right, on this example, we are looking at multiplying two matrices together. The first thing that you have to do is to check to make sure that they are able to be multiplied. So we are going to find the dimensions of each one of these. This first one is a 2 by 3. It has 2 rows and 3 columns. The second one is a 3 by 2. It has 3 rows and 2 columns. So when I'm checking to see if I can multiply this together, I'm looking at these middle numbers, and that middle number in this particular case, I have 3s, so they do match. And what that tells me is that when I get my answer is automatically going to be a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, so in order to get this, I'm going to draw my matrix. I know it has 2 rows and 2 columns, so that means that I'm going to have 4 entries. In order to determine what I'm going to multiply, I'm going to look at the position of each one of these. This first one is in row 1, and it is in column 1. Therefore, that tells me that I'm going to take row 1 of the first matrix, and I'm going to multiply times column 1. So in this particular situation, what I'm looking at is taking this row times this column. And when I do that, I'm going to have -1 times 2 plus 3 times 4 plus 4 times 6. So when we're multiplying that row and column, we're multiplying those corresponding elements. The first times the first, second times second, third times third, and we're adding those together. All right, if I'm going to do this next entry, this is in row 2, column 1. So that tells me that I'm going to be taking row 2, and I'm going to be multiplying it times column 1. So in order to do this, I'm going to multiply -1 times 2. Okay, let's go back here. I'm multiplying row 2, so it's going to be 13 times 2 plus 5 times 4 plus 7 times 6. The location of the next element in my matrix, this is in row 1, column 2. So that tells me that I'm going to take row 1 and I'm going to multiply it times column 2. So when I do this multiplication, I'm going to do the first times the first, so that's -1 times -7. Second times the second, which is 3 times 3. And the third times the third, which is going to be 4 times 1. To get the last entry, this is row 2, column 2, which means that I'm going to be multiplying my row 2 times my column 2. And when I write this out, first number in row 2 times the first number in column 2 plus second number in row 2 times second number in column 2 plus third number times third number. And then I'm going to simplify. I have negative 2 plus 12 is 10, plus 24 would give me 34. I have 13 times 2 is 26, 46, and 28 is going to give me 74. 7 plus 6 is 13, plus 4 is 17. And the last entry, I'm going to have negative 91 plus 15 plus 7. So that's going to be negative 91 plus 22. And that's going to give me negative 69. Remember that you can go to Desmos matrix calculator in order to check to make sure that your answer is correct. All right, on this example, our first matrix has 3 rows and 2 columns. Our second matrix has 2 rows and 3 columns. What I'm looking for is to make sure that my middle numbers are matching. So I have a 2 and a 2. They are. And that tells me now that my resulting matrix is going to be a 3 by 3. That means it is going to have 3 rows and it is going to have 3 columns. And we can treat this the same way as we did before. This is row 1, column 1. So I'm going to multiply row 1 times column 1, which is going to be negative 11 times 4 plus 5 times 5. This is row 1, column 2, so I'm multiplying row 1 times the second column. This is row 1, column 3. I'm going to multiply row 1 times the third column. And then in my second row, this is going to be the entry for row 2, column 1. So I'm going to take row 2, which is 7, 2, times column 1. So I'm going to have 7 times 4 plus 2 times 5. This is row 2, column 2. I'm going to have 7 times negative 3 plus 2 times 2. And this is row 2, column 3. So I multiply row 2 times column 3, which is 7 times 2 plus 2 times 1. All right, my final row, I have row 3 times column 1. So it's 6 times 4 plus 14 times 5. Then row 3, column 2 is going to be 6 times negative 3 plus 14 times 2. And row 3, column 3 is going to be 6 times 2 plus 14 times 1. And then I'm going to simplify. I get negative 44 plus 25, which is going to give me negative 19. 28 plus 10 is 38. 24 plus 20 is 44. 33 plus 10 is 43. Negative 21 plus 4 is negative 17. Negative 18 plus 28 is 10. Negative 22 plus 5 is negative 17. 14 plus 2, 16, and 12 plus 14 is 26. And again, we can check this on Desmos matrix. All right, this one is a 2 by 2, and we're multiplying it times a 2 by 2. My middle dimensions do match. They are both 2's. Therefore, I can multiply, and that tells me my answer is a 2 by 2. So in my answer, I'm going to have 2 rows and 2 columns. This is row 1, column 1. Row 1, column 2, row 2, column 1, row 2, column 2. And I'm going to multiply row 1, which contains 2 negative 1, times the column 4 negative 3. So this is going to be 2 times 4 plus negative 1 times negative 3. Row 1 times column 2 is going to be 2 times 4 plus negative 1 times negative 5. Row 2 times column 1 is going to be negative 6 times 4 plus 1 times negative 3. And row 2, column 2 is going to be negative 6 times 4 plus 1 times negative 5. Simplify, I get 8 plus 3 is 11. 8 plus 5 is 13. Negative 24 plus negative 3 is negative 27. And negative 24 and negative 5 is negative 29.